Hey everybody, it's Jim McGuinn for Teenage Kicks, and this week in early January is the anniversary of both David Bowie's birth and sadly his passing. So we kind of feel like we should celebrate his career at some points here on The Current. And on Teenage Kicks this week, we're going to dig into the Ziggy Stardust era for David Bowie. Now, Ziggy Stardust was his fifth album. It came out in 1972, and he'd been working as a mime in the past, so the idea of creating a new character, a new identity, and sort of putting on a rock and roll mask was not alien to David Bowie. The concept for the album, bizarrely, started in the mid-'60s when he ran into a guy named Vince Taylor. Vince Taylor was an old rockabilly star from the UK. He's the guy that wrote Brand New Cadillac, which The Clash covered a little bit later on. And apparently Vince Taylor was a little bit off of his rocker at this point, and he told Bowie that he was an alien that was sent down to save the planet with rock and roll. Aha, somewhere in the back of David's mind, that idea marinated for a little while, and when he came time to make his record in 1971-72, he brought that concept back and created the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, renaming his band as the Spiders from Mars, and really writing an album about aliens, alienation, and the apocalypse. Now, when the record was released, it wasn't really a success right off the bat, but then Bowie was on Top of the Pops, the UK music television show, in the summer of 1972, and he came out with the full Ziggy makeup and the look, and that was the moment that it created a sensation, and it really put a clear division between the earlier generation, the Beatles and the Stones, and this new futuristic 1970s space alien whatever. The hair was radically different, the makeup, the look, the feel, the sound. So even though Bowie was kind of a classicist in terms of he loved those records from the 60s, he was putting that line in the sand, and you were either with him or not with him, and millions of kids in the UK became with him. That tour became a sensation. He became a phenomenon. He also had provocative quotes in the press about his sexuality. People were just really curious about this Ziggy Stardust, David Bowie thing. Now, there had been previous people like Alice Cooper and T-Rex who had been in a similar sonic terrain, but Bowie had the whole package. It was that character that he created for Ziggy Stardust. He went on the road and eventually got to America, and he toured America, and while in America he started writing songs which became Aladdin Sane, which is a pun on a lad insane, talking about the rock and roll lifestyle of being on a tour bus, being in this strange country and seeing these strange things happening all around him. And that was sort of the next phase of Ziggy Stardust. He also took the band in the studio and played some of those favorite songs of the late 60s, and that became the album Pin-Ups. And again, this was sort of marking a space where he was both acknowledging the influence and putting that music, even though it was only 5 years old, those songs were from the late 60s, he was putting those songs into the past and saying, this is now, this is the future. Then, what did Bowie do? He stopped. The summer of 1973, only about a year after the beginning of launching Ziggy Stardust, he retired Ziggy Stardust, and that was it. And now, unlike The Who went on and made a movie about Tommy and a movie about Quadrophenia and took their concept albums and played them out for years and decades to come, Bowie never really went back and did a full Ziggy anything. He never really went back to the makeup. He never really, milked out that tour or anything. He played those songs. Those became the most iconic songs of his career probably, but he kind of let it go. And so it's this perfect time capsule of the 1972-1973 David Bowie, those three great records that the Spiders from Mars made. And of course, he went on to an incredible career and influenced countless generations of musicians since then. So this week on Teenage Kicks, we're going to dig into the Ziggy era David Bowie. Ziggy played ukulele. I don't think Ziggy actually played ukulele, but we can dream. Ziggy Stardust era Bowie this week. Teenage Kicks. Thanks to Fiona for the makeup and hair. Rock and roll. Here it is.